dude, I was in a halfway house working at Kentucky Fried Chicken 12 years ago, looking at the TV screen thinking, I'm going to get there.
Hi, Mark.
Mark.
Hi, Mark.
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 Hey, Mark Hallie.
The Mark Hallie Show.
How did you do it and why? So, just to get this thing started. So, Pete, you're an Archbishop Carroll outside of Philadelphia, a high school grad.
Yeah, Archbishop Carroll High School. I grew up in Radnor, like right by Villanova University.
Yeah.
I went to Conestoga Swim Club. I had all, you and I are from pretty much the same places. And I never growing up, for me personally, had to like want or need for anything. And
me neither.
Yeah. And I was super lucky because, that's not everybody's story, but I was one of the guys in, in the rooms in the 12-step community. He said, born on third base, thought I had a triple. And that was me. That was who I was, for sure.
Yeah, I always tell people when they get into, like whatever the rap on, nowadays, rich white, whatever, fat white guy or whatever, and I'm like, well, whatever I am, I had a good launch point.
Yes.
I'll give you that. And you call me what you want. I took off up here in society. Good family, well educated, well supported. And, for me, when the shit hit the fan, there wasn't any like monster judgment. There was like, hey, you fucked up. But, there wasn't people saying like, oh, you suck. I didn't get that. And I think a lot of people either don't get any support or they get very negative support or, no support from a negative perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was fortunate to when I finally asked for help. It still was there. And looking back now, being sober, and thinking about my alcoholism and just a monster that it was, right?
So wait a minute, this myopathy, what the hell is that?
Well, it's an enlarged left ventricle. And then I realized it can kill you. Your heart doesn't beat at its proper function, right? At its proper strength. But what you and I share is that insanity of addiction. And that was my first real insane moment looking back, where I was ready to choose alcohol and drugs over my health, my heart, because my doctor said, hey, you could have gotten this one of two ways. You could have gotten it through the virus, or you could have gotten it through, abuse of alcohol and drugs. And I was like, hey, I got it through the virus, right? You're not going to
stop this steamroller.
No, there's nothing that's going to get in the way of my ability to drink and use. I mean, there wasn't even a moment where I thought it over.
Well, you're a young kid. That's the thing. What are you, 19 or 20?
I'm 19, but Mark, I will tell you, I was the same way until I got sober, right? It wasn't like ignorance of being young. It was alcoholism. I mean, from the first time a drink touched my lips, and it was my first spiritual experience. Yeah, I really, it changed everything about me, everything about my confidence. And I looked at life totally differently. And I still to this day, I can't believe when people say the first time they drank, like they just got a little buzzed and whatever, like people, like normal people. I don't even understand that. I can't.
No, I got my, two things before. One thing is my best friend. I played lacrosse all through college, and same thing. I happened to be able to play, but high, whatever, you name it. But it wasn't as competitive. It was generally not. It was more of a preppy school game, and it still is. But it was fun. We ran around and hit each other. But I think I could have played a lot better had I been clean. But my best friend in college died a week after college. All sorts of whatever it is with the heart, aortic aneurysm, whatever. But I do know we were all partying like rock stars when that happened. Of course, it didn't even cross my mind that my lifestyle was doing that. But like you, I just love the shit. I didn't even think about it. You and I have talked
about that, how hard you and your friends were going in that period in time where cocaine was really prominent, right? It was anywhere you could go. It was right there.
Yeah, it was everywhere. And then, I don't know, it started, two things I realized for me was I was in a way conscientious that my brothers were high performers, and I had a couple friends from Malvern that were high performers, and I realized I can't keep up. Like I'm falling, like I'm going to have to accept like a lower lifestyle. Like, I don't know what, like I'm going to end up being the mechanic who just gets fucked up all the time, and just kind of throw out the idea of having, honestly, like,
Yeah.
but that was unacceptable to me, but it went through my mind,
Yeah. Well,
Did you have a similar experience?
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, honestly, I sometimes think I was so far gone that I didn't even worry about that because I thought drugs was such a lifestyle. And I did sort of like get by on like a wink and a handshake for a while. So I never saw like the dead end that I was about to smack right into coming
Mm-hmm.
because I still was able to stay in college.
Yep.
I still wasn't because the football team, remember, I went to Richmond on scholarship. They made sure that I was going to earn it. Like the football coaches and everybody, they saw to it that I was going to be a class because they
But
wanted.
what happened? What happened? But the heart thing, did they find that out right away?
Well, they found that out when I was going to play in an all-star game.
Oh, and when was the All-Star game?
It was May, I guess, of my senior year in high school.
Oh,
Yeah.
senior.
Yeah.
But then, could you play in college?
I couldn't play at all. They
okay,
were like,
okay.
You cannot play. So I had to stay and kind of work with the team to continue to earn my scholarship.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But that didn't stop me from getting fucked up. And it didn't stop me from smoking. I was huge into smoking weed.
Oh, good stuff.
What I did tell myself was I'm going to back off the prescription drugs, but I was alcohol and marijuana all the time whenever I get my hands on it. Excuse me. And the support I had around I had friends who played football. I was still very close with, and my coaches really kept me on track to graduate on time. So I got out of school on time, and I thought that I was going to, at least I flirted with success after college. And but then comes and why I was so interested in your story.
Here goes. Let's do this just to get going, because I not get going, but I want to circle back just real quickly because I think your existing career is, and then we can circle back to the beat up section. Yeah. But what do you do? What are you doing now?
Well, now I still through that I know you have this too, but that sports nut muscle, I was always watching games. I would sit in front of my television screen and turn the sound down and call games. I always wanted to do. Oh my gosh. I listened to going to bed, listening to Harry Callis at night.
Yeah.
Anytime the NFL Today would come on, that was I think that was really my first high. We would go to St. Thomas, we would go to church at Villanova. Then we would drive to Bryn Mawr, get Dunkin' Donuts. I would sit in front with all these Dunkin' Donuts in front of the television section and the sports section where I would look at the odds of the games, and I would watch Jimmy the Greek and Brent Musburger.
Yeah.
Cross on the NFL Today. And I would have these donuts and I was like flying high. I loved it. And Brent Musburger was a huge influence on me, and I always wanted to call games. So now, I mean, after all the rigmarole, like you said, the beat up section, I've been able to tap into my God-given skills, and I call games now. I call
for who?
For ESPN.
Right on.
Yeah.
What do they call you at ESPN? Like
a play-by-play guy. So I'm a play-by-play announcer. Yeah.
But now, before you got into that game,
yeah,
I was checking it out. What's the name of the one in KWTX?
KWTX.
There we go. I thought I got it right.
News. So
yeah, I was checking you out on that. I was checking you out on all these different videos. So how do you hook up with Waco, Texas?
So I mean that was part of sobriety. It's like I got sober, and I was willing to. I was like I had this bug up my ass, and it was really it was a pure thought. It was not a bug up my ass. It was God. It was like, what do you want to do? I want to get into broadcasting. So I was like, I'll do whatever I can to get into broadcasting. And initially it was calling sports. I called games for the what is now called the G League and the NBA, basically the NBA minor league.
Yeah.
And then I got a job in Charlotte working with the Charlotte Hornets radio broadcast and some stuff for their.
How do you hook up from that? I mean,
so you're out. I had done in my previous life when I was drinking and using, I had worked in the NBA in public relations. So I
Right.
had some relationships. And really, when I got sober, uh, it was all part of my amends making process. I made amends to people who I needed to make amends to, right? People through addiction that I had, that I burnt basically.
Basically, for those of you who are called amends out there, it's in the simplest, form. Who did you dick over, or who did you fuck over, and go back and say, "Man, I'm sorry for that. I
Yeah.
won't be that anyway." So
Yeah.
we'll move past that. You went back and said, "Oh, I was an asshole, and I'm so sorry."
Yeah, I just owned my side of the street, and it was one of the most invigorating things ever. I mean, look, there were some people who didn't want to talk to me who I just couldn't get in touch with, but there
Yeah,
were
yeah.
there were many who I did talk to and who saw the light in my eye and who felt the authenticity coming off me, and they were like, "Wow." So when I reached out to them and asked about a job in broadcasting, they said, "Hey, maybe we'll bring this guy on and let him do this little sliver because we know he's capable." And that
Hmm.
built me up professionally and personally. And like I mentioned, I was doing sports for a while in sobriety.
Weren't you doing some girls softball?
Oh,
Was
I
that
did.
Earl?
I still do girls softball. No,
Yeah.
girls softball. I do it. I just did girls softball. I did the Big 12 tournament for ESPN, and it's
Right
all
on.
yeah. But like, so that was part of like the package I
But
did.
then we'll jump back. We're hanging out doing play by play, and then we jump to Charlotte.
Yeah, we go to Charlotte. And then from Charlotte, if you can stay with me, I had a guy who I knew and trusted. Again, this is when I'm sober. He was like, I think you should go into morning news, like television. And
So now go back to Charlotte Hornets. Did I hear you hanging with Larry Fitzgerald?
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah. I was watching that, and I'm like, because I dug all over on you, and I'm like,
yeah,
Larry Fitzgerald, that's the hot
yeah. He
shot.
came to, and that's when I was sober. Mark, he
Uh huh.
came to a game, and I was doing radio studio hosting and radio sideline reporting during home games. So if somebody like Larry Fitzgerald came to a Charlotte Hornets game, I would talk to him really quick. Where I asked him if he'd talk to me, talk to him for about 45 seconds, two
Yeah.
minutes, and then that obviously would go on the radio broadcast.
Now in the NBA, I've never been down on the sidelines. I've been
Yeah.
down the sidelines for some. Those guys must be huge and fast.
Well, they're stood there. Yes, they're the most impressive athletes that you could be around because of not only their size but their strength and their quickness.
Mm-hmm.
And
The court must look so small with
I
all
don't-
these huge. I mean, I played pickup ball all my life, but
yeah,
the wingspan. I mean, those passes are within. I mean,
and they go and they are. It all happens really fast, and I've gotten used to it calling games now, but it is, man, it happens fast.
Was
That's
there any particular guys that maybe you said, well, you don't have to call them out. Well, you
oh, yeah.
can. Who were some nice guys? Just some dudes who you thought were, hey,
Oh,
it's a
some
nice guy.
great guys. There were some guys who I absolutely loved. Like when I was in Philadelphia, I thought Andre Iguodala was a great guy when I worked for the
Mhm.
Sixers. I really like Lou Williams. Willie Green was the best guy.
Really?
Yeah, and when I was in Charlotte, Matt Carroll was there from Philadelphia.
Uh-huh.
I liked him a lot. I grew to I grew a relationship with this guy Gerald Wallace,
Uh-huh.
who was an all-star. There were a lot of guys who were really, it's funny, and I know this now so much better than I did then, but now that goes to what you're saying. These are young guys. They're
Yeah,
just
little youngins.
they're just trying to find their way. And there are so many great guys in there that maybe get a bad rap. That is one reason I liked public relations, because you could take guys that had these screwed up stories from their upbringings and didn't know how to convey it to the public or didn't care to. And you could say, hey, this is something that's interesting about this player. He's not
Mhm.
just some dude that plays basketball. You see
Not
a
some
lot more
thug.
of that today. Yeah.
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 Yeah, they do personalize that. And then because I know, well, very limited experience with me, had a pro football player on here, Joe
Yeah.
Barksdale.
Yeah.
He played offensive tackle, LSU, and such a nice guy. And he talked very openly about his challenges with chronic depression. I mean,
Yeah.
like really openly, and all of a sudden this kid's 6'7", 290. It just seemed, you think, no way.
Yeah.
And then I met this young man named Russell Okun, who was an offensive tackle, pretty hot shot in the NFL.
I've heard of
Had
him.
dinner. Yeah, I had dinner. It was like nicest. I mean, he just seemed like a young kid. just this huge young kid.
And that's it.
And
The size is phenomenal, but a lot of the times they're just like you or I, as far as where they are in their formative years or where they're developing or anything. They're just young
then they
guys.
get a trash load of money. I mean, that
Oh my
man.
gosh, yeah. I mean, I didn't.
Thank God.
I didn't have much money when I was in my 20s, but boy, I made it last, and I made
Mm-hmm.
it go, and I was able to do all kinds of stuff with it that was
Oh,
insane. I
can you
can't imagine.
imagine? Can you imagine getting
No,
that cash?
I really
So
can't.
now we're hanging out. We're calling games at the Hornets. Like, there he goes. He lays the ball
Yeah.
up. Oh,
Well,
score! And I'm going to
I
go
didn't call the games
to.
there, but
Okay. Okay.
I was part of the radio broadcast.
Okay.
And then that's when I had a buddy say, "Hey, you should get into TV news because it's way more of a it's just more stable.
Mm-hmm.
Like around the clock full-time job." And I just got out of rehab. When I was in rehab, I went to a halfway house after that. I
Yep.
worked at
Yep.
Kentucky Fried Chicken in a halfway house. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I did those like the things that have to do with humility
How
and
long? How long were you in the halfway house?
5 months.
Wow. So anybody who doesn't know, you go to rehab and there's these things called
Yeah.
halfway houses where a bunch of sober people go hang out. I don't know if they all keep sober. There's a little bit of few people wandering off the beam, but
Oh
the
yeah.
basic
Wondering up is a
idea is
great way
there's
to put it.
somebody there saying, don't get fucked up. Some people go a month, some people go a year, but it's a huge, huge benefit to a lot of people. And you did 5 months. That's a pretty good stint.
Yeah, 5 months after a month in rehab, and then so I learned throughout that whole process to be humble, and
Yep.
which is like a practice. It's
Yep.
basically understanding that look, I'm not in charge, and doing the next right thing, although sometimes it's hard, will ultimately work out in the end. I mean, did those esteemable acts, and some of the esteemable acts were working at Kentucky Fried Chicken, taking a news job in Monroe, Louisiana. That was the first job I took in TV news because
Monroe, Louisiana.
I needed a steady income. I needed independence. And when I say independence, I mean the best kind of independence where you can rely on yourself. I'm not talking
Sure.
about I need to go to live in, Cancun. I needed to be fiscally responsible. And then from Monroe, that's when I got the job in Waco, Texas, doing all this morning news. And when I got to Waco, I started to get tapped to do stuff for ESPN. People found
Yeah,
out.
because I
Yeah.
saw you in Waco. You did the news. You
Uh,
were out on the street.
yeah.
Um, you were on just basically talking with the person, the hot shots in the morning.
Yeah.
And I think the one that caught me the funniest was the weather, because I'm like, you got to stand in front of that green thing or
Oh my God.
whatever it is.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And is that a mess? I mean, learning that, is that like,
So I've
oh,
never done the weather. I've been over there.
but I saw you standing in front of something.
I'm
Maybe you're
sure.
talking about,
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell you were doing.
I know what you're talking about. Like
Big
sometimes
flood.
being from Philadelphia, I went out in Texas here that we had like awful snow in 2021, and it shut down like the most parts of the state, and certainly here in Central Texas. So I
Uh-huh.
was like, hey, let me go out in the ice and do some reporting and stuff.
Yeah, that was it. Bang, 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 bang on the
Wow.
ice. Like, oh my
Yeah,
God, it's horrible out here.
yeah, yeah. Which was a lot of fun because we get to take some of our Philadelphia flavor and make people understand that
Yeah,
we're all
yeah,
going to be okay.
yeah,
It's not the end of the
yeah.
world.
That's great. So now let's get back to the real thing. We'll eventually circle back to your more significant story. I love to hear the way people. Part of the show is, not part of it. The whole show is, how does a guy get from point A to guy or gal get from point A to B, and what was that challenge? But at this
Yeah,
point now, life is starting to go a little better. You're down in Waco. You're doing the morning thing, and then you click on with ESPN.
yeah. It was pretty amazing.
Hmm.
How it happened. Did you see you just zoomed out?
Did I zoom out? I
Yeah,
didn't mean to.
guys in the control room. You just zoomed out on Mark.
Yeah. The fuck is going on?
Hey, me?
I don't think so.
No.
You mean like that? Oh, how's that, brother? Yeah, I don't see nothing flashing blue. I
You're
got
gonna make
enough.
me want to. Okay.
Technical problems here, Pete.
I trust me. Story of my
You know,
life, brother.
yeah,
That's why I caught it.
yeah, good.
But
Fucking production, fucking people. They're below me, Pete.
no,
You
they're
know what I
not.
mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Come
what
on,
you
you
gotta
know me.
remember.
I'm badass. I'm in here. I'm paying the cash. You know, but yeah, you get. There's his head in the small one now. Got the small and the big one. We got something going on here. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. There we go.
There
Blue.
you go.
Whoa.
All right, Bill, we're back.
Whoa. Clicked in here somehow. We got to get this going. So now you get picked up by ESPN.
Yeah, so I'd say that's exactly the point we were talking about. So I think you and I had talked about this when you came on my podcast, but
Yeah.
I was in, stuff happens even in sobriety. And this goes back to your point A to point B. I was in a relationship with a woman, and
Uh-oh.
yeah, and so
Uh-oh.
it went sideways. But when I wasn't, it wasn't the most sober behavior, as I kind of went all in on the relationship and kind of lost a lot of my goals and stuff. So nobody's fault but
You
mine.
go addictive. You go wild, man.
100% my fault. So I get out of this relationship. And again, it's like another moment when I'm in rehab. I'm like, what do I really want to do? And I'm like, I want to call games. This is 3 years ago. So I make sure that I get because I was doing some reading.
But you're still clean. You mentioned
Oh,
rehab.
yeah.
Rehab. Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
So I mean, I'm 12 years now. At this point, this is like 3 years ago. And I just went hardcore at trying to get more and more play by play, and it just so happens that I had gotten a demo reel of mine across someone with help. I got it across the desk of a guy at ESPN or across the computer, and a guy who hired people to do baseball, and Keith Moreland, who God bless him is still doing well. He was the play-by-play guy for the Texas Longhorns at the Longhorn Network.
Moreland played for the Phillies, didn't he?
Played for the Phillies, played for the Cubs.
Right
amazing ball player and an amazing broadcaster. He had some health stuff. He had some heart stuff flare up, so he had to tap out for like a week's worth of games. And they needed a replacement. This is in Austin, right in my neck of the woods, fast. So I got a phone call.
Big time.
Yeah. Can you? It's an ESPN game. They're like, hey, can you get to Austin and call these games? It was like a series of games. I said, no problem. And
I'll be there in a heartbeat. Sorry, I'm in the car already.
I basically, I got there, and that weekend really sort of changed my trajectory because I was ready to call the games. I think that I had done enough, and this is where God's path or the point A to point B, you really never know what you never know what your path is going to be. I did not ever think I would be doing morning news. But by getting up and doing the news every morning for 6-7 years, for 2.5 hours,
it was that long, 6-7 years. Damn.
Yeah. And I grew as a broadcaster.
Sure.
So now when I get the call to do ESPN, I know how to do play-by-play, but I also know how to be on the air and do my best to carry a broadcast. That's not unfamiliar to me.
Yeah.
And so I was ready, and so that series went well. And then the next year, I got a couple football games and a couple basketball games. The year after that, I got more. The year after that, I got more. And now here I am today.
You're with Baylor now, pretty much.
Well, I'm the Big 12 conference. So it's like, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Iowa State. I do all those games, and now honestly with big BYU's in the conference, so I do a bunch of do games out of BYU.
Is this all sports or what sports?
All sports, basketball, mostly men's basketball and college football.
There's some good basketball in those leagues.
Oh, amazing! And then you still end up doing, I did the NIT. I did a game at Iowa. I did a game
Hmm.
at Florida International. You end up doing games, and then I'll do a game, Seton Hall game, whatever they need me to do.
And
I
then
will.
they're flying you around.
Oh yeah, and that's part of it. And they do a great job of, if you do your part, getting ready and preparing for the broadcast, a major network, and God, ESPN's been awesome to me. I mean, they really have. But they know my story. They've given me opportunities. They're the best. I have nothing but amazing things to say about that network.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah,
And so they're moving you all over the place. And I presume as this is happening, you're moving up the ladder
sure. I
as
mean,
to
yeah,
your.
I am. There's still. Honestly, Mark, and this does not. Don't be fooled and think that I'm putting ambition on the shelf. Sometimes that can get the best of me, and I get in my head, and just like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you and your career in sales, like we get a little nutty about the next deal, right? And I have to get myself right size and just be like, hey, man, I'm calling games for ESPN, traveling all over the country. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
This is a weird time of year for me. I can get squirrely just because, at the end of the baseball and softball season, there's no more sports to do. So, and I have a podcast I do now about
Yeah, I
sobriety.
know. I know. And
Yeah,
for anybody listening, I was on. What's the name of that podcast?
called the Payoff. The Payoff
The
with Pete.
Payoff. There
Yeah,
we go. The Payoff with Pete. And
yeah.
you can listen
So
to Mark Halley on. I mean, one of the best episodes, I
featured
think.
probably one. It was Philly to Philly. It's this cosmic chemistry we share.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of how I ended up here and what I'm doing now. And it's been a pretty cool ride. But none of it would have happened if I didn't get sober.
No. And now with ESPN, how does it roll? Like, do you know if you're going to work next year? Or are you waiting to
Yeah, I
hear
do.
from a.
Like I have a contract, and it's the what somebody like me. I mean, being totally transparent in my shoes. You hope that you'll get more games, right? Uh,
Uh,
and some of that's a little unhealthy. Like
mhm.
in a sense where in my mind I could never work enough games. But at some point, like my boss told me this summer, the guy who hires me for basketball was like, hey, I never like to give anybody more than 30 games. So don't even bother thinking you're going to get, you know what I mean? Like kind of like, and that's somebody who knows so much about this industry and it's just setting expectations for me, being like, hey,
He
this is
knows the burnout rate.
yes. Yeah. And so that's why, and that really is truly, I just turn it over to a guy like that and say, hey, okay,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
this guy thinks I'm fit to do, I have done my part,
Yeah.
and I have certainly covered all the bases as far as getting my material and showing people what I do. Honestly, I can say I do a good job. I mean, I'm not for everybody, but
Hmm.
I
What I watched, I thought you were
yeah,
good. I thought I was just listening to a guy who knows how to call games.
and that's
You
what
know,
that's all you want to do. And I just want to be a conduit between the people and the sport and the event taking place, and let's have some fun. Remember,
not as good as Merle Reese. Not as good as Merle Reese.
no
Come on.
Reese's. I can't. That guy is like, you got to bless yourself when you talk about him. If you're from Philadelphia, and he is.
Yeah.
He's still. That's a guy who I'll listen to Eagles games when I do. I mean, being here, so sometimes I'll put him on the radio because I can listen on Sirius. He
Hmm.
he hadn't lost a step, man.
No, no. I mean, and he's get you hear him nationally too. I
Yes,
mean, you hear his voice is played nationally. So well, listen, guy's been working at it. But the thing I think is interesting for some of the younger folk here is 6 to 7 years pounding away. What in Monroe?
dude, more than that. I mean, I was in Monroe for a year and a half,
Okay.
and then Waco for 7. I'm still work. I still work out of Waco.
Uh,
So this is where I'm based. I have like a great,
7 years for anybody listen here.
yeah.
7 years. A younger folks might think, "Oh my God, it's the end of the world." That's not. That's not even a really super long gig.
No, and it seemed, and it was 9 years altogether. I was sober 9 years before I really got any kind of a break. And you bring up a really good point. I mean, there were days where I just kind of lived in the day and had gratitude and just kept at it. And there were days when I was frustrated or pissed, and some days are better than others, but I kept showing up. I kept doing the work. I kept getting the reps in. When I started doing news, now I'm dyslexic, right?
Oh,
I was
really?
I was awful at it because you're reading the teleprompter.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
I would not only was I not good at reading, but I was so intimidated. I was nervous
Yeah. Yeah,
because
your weak spot.
yeah. So and luckily, and that's God put me in Monroe, Louisiana. So you know who's watching the news there? Not too many people.
No, I was going
And,
to say
and so
Monroe's not huge.
great people though. And they supported me. Maybe some did because they're like, well, this guy can't read. He's giving us our
Well, listen, reading in Monroe may not be
oh, it's you.
that's nasty. I shouldn't say that.
No, that's funny though. Come on. I try to have, I can pretty much laugh at anything, much to
Uh-huh.
the chagrin of my girlfriend and people around me. But because I find anything to be funny in one way or the other.
Well,
But yeah,
I traveled the Southeast for my sales job for 5 years. So I loved it down there.
yeah.
I did. I
Oh,
loved it. But so
people.
now Waco for total of 9?
I was in Waco for 7 years, Monroe for 2. So
Okay.
together, I was really kind of, I'm still in Waco, but I was in the TV news. I just am stopping the TV news because
Wow.
the sports is getting to be just I can't do both. This basketball season it was impossible, and my job worked with me. They said, hey, if you have a basketball game, we understand you can fly out, do the game, and then when you come back, be on the air. But I missed a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work, and they were like, hey, we love having you, but it's just too much to do
Well,
both.
you start feeling, it's like taking over commitments. I do that up here,
Yeah,
and I'll say, oh yeah, 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 because I'm like a people pleaser. I'll be like, oh, of course, and then I get into it. I'm pissed at the person who wants me to do it, which is great because I said yes, and then I'm overcome with guilt.
yeah.
So I've started to just not make those. I just said, no, man, I can't do it. I just don't like don't get yourself in positions where you're squeezing your life. You
Well, it's
know?
like, what I used to tell myself, I still do sometimes. It's like, okay, almost like there's a superhero aspect. That's a job for future Pete, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
all of a
yeah,
sudden, it's time for me, Pete,
yeah,
on
yeah,
Earth. Like there's no superhero. Eventually,
yeah,
you gotta handle it.
yeah. If you're talking about cranking it, I got my first sales job after rehab when I was 26, and it was shitty inside sales job, dog shit, right? And it took me, I would say, 5 years to become truly competent. Selling there's a science to it. There's a very much a good salespeople study it and do it, and they are doing it all the time. And I was doing that. I mean, pounding, pounding, pounding. It was a total of 12 years before I had promotions and the like. But before the light went on that, holy shit, I have value. Like Mark Halley will like if I went on the street within my industry, number one, other people would want to hire me. Number two, customers would come with me if I had a product. That's 12 years.
Yeah,
That's not easy.
yeah.
Somebody else, some of the younger guys, and I don't think they're all this Gen X bullshit. I think there's a lot of them that are just there's too much information out there. There's too much stuff to do, and I think the kids who work for me, they're just frozen. They don't know what the hell to do, and we made them. So if you take a shit on them, who are you taking a shit on? You're the parents.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a double shit. And so I'm like, they just, so that's part of the object here is
Yeah.
time is time, and you can't speed it up. You just can't. Now, here we go. Now we're going to circle back to the big
That is
situation.
amazing stuff. I appreciate that. That's like one and obviously there's no offense, but this one old timer to another like sober guy, like what you just shared with me. I'm reminded of why I had such a good time talking with you earlier.
Yeah.
Because that's stuff that I think that what you just shared with me is stuff that I have to practice. Like we all have to practice. Like you can't just one day remind yourself that, oh yeah, it took Mark 12 years before the light went on. Like, it takes time. You have to work at it. You have to be patient. Like, I think that you got to practice that mentality every day because it helps you stay in the moment and bust your ass at what you're doing that day, which ultimately leads to, oh my gosh, I have value.
Yeah. And I tell you what, I used to say that this was in my mind when I was young. It's really crazy. I used to think I worked my balls off. And I used to think there's some guy around this world, maybe in Japan or India, that's my competition. He's right now working harder than me. I don't know who he is. But
Yeah.
the way this world is, whether you like it or not, if you're standing still, people are running past you. And the other thing is, there's 60 minutes in an hour, not 61, not 59. And the biggest problem I had all my life is trying to think I could get 61 or 59 out of it. You just can't. Time, and it would freak me out because on the good days, it'd be like, boom, 60 minutes. And on the bad days, it'd be like, I'd look up at the clock, we're 20 minutes in, and I'm like, oh my God, I am going to die. Seriously, when I had really high anxiety, I fought with depression at different times, and it gets hard. Life is fucking hard.
Yeah.
And how, if you're like you and I, and, recovering, what's your choice? I used to think about that. Like if I used to think of it in this kind of rough way, somebody pushes you against the wall and he says, so what are you going to do now, kid? You're fucked. What are you going to do? You're going to go right or left? And to me, I always answered right. But that was not not an easy decision, but it just was locked in my brain. Don't get fucked up.
Yeah. And then when you get on the right side of it, simple, not easy, like these are simple decisions because we know intuitively, finally, we're thinking with a clear head. Okay, I know the right thing to do, and executing it is not always easy.
Well, no. So let me tell you, what would be the thing right now that you have to chill out on and focus on, on like now, where's my career and where I want it to be? So Pete has to take a deep breath. Okay, let's get in touch with our force. Imagine the trees are around you. Little birdies are doing it. Okay, I can't ever do that, but we're going to try. Okay, open your eyes, for God damn it. Your eyes are closed. So anyway, what would be some of those things if you were to point them out and say, what are the things that you're pushing on, but the fact is you can't move it right now?
Oh, it's certainly the trajectory of my career. I have done everything I possibly can. I've been given opportunities to call games, and really, in reality, it's gone very well. Now, in my head, I say it could have gone better. This sucked, that sucked. I have good conversations with people about my career. I'm told things that would show that it's imminent, that I'm going I'm moving forward, right? That's undeniable.
You have value.
Yeah, but in my mind, I tell myself I don't, and here's what I'm trying to chill out on, because I don't want to have any kind of anxious emotion around anybody. So if we can't deny it. It's that the anxiety, stress, it's all real stuff.
They're all over.
But at the same time, where is my energy going? Am I focusing on something that's not there that, oh, by the way, is there, but I'm telling myself it's not. So then I'm not able to help other people and connect with other people because I'm so preoccupied with self. So I think the number one thing is to understand that I've gotten so much better at this, but to understand that I do have value, that I am enough, that nothing in my career defines who I am or the type of person that I am for other people. I think that is the ultimate for me. I need to chill out on my outsides, making my insides feel good about myself.
Well, that's for me, selling my business and no longer being like, I used to always think, oh, it's all cool. I'm a business owner, I'm a CEO, but I'm a cool one. And, I don't attach my name to it because I'm cool. Well, when I sold the business, that's bullshit. I learned my vanity was right there.
Really?
I like to call myself owner. I like to call myself CEO. And when I didn't, all of a sudden, and it's been going on for a while. Part of the reason I'm doing this is like fuck, I don't like, I almost question myself. Like you weren't as good as you were. It just like, you just kind of shit went on.
But that goes on to what I'm saying. You were.
Yeah.
You sold your business. Like you have it in black and white.
But you know what I mean? Well. It doesn't
yeah.
like in my brain, it's like, And I shouldn't say all the time. There are quite a bit of time where I'm like, wow, I did really well. That was great.
Yeah.
Not with like prideful, fuck you, I'm great. But, and there is even some of that in my mind. Like, some of the people I work with, like, hey, fuck you, I beat you. That's
Yeah.
just being competitive. But that is a big struggle for me. And you're in the midst of it as a young guy in a profession,
Yeah.
but I'm in the midst of it on the other end. So I think it
Yeah.
never stops.
Let me ask
So,
you a question just real
what?
quick, and you can come back at me. When you have that competitive side, where you're saying, "Hey, fuck you, I beat
Uh-huh.
you," do you think that that's a good mode? Because I have that too, and sometimes I'm like, "Well, I don't know that I want to put that on the shelf." That kind of lights a fire under my ass.
Oh, dude, let me tell you what. It better light a fire under your ass. How old are you now?
47.
Dude,
Yeah,
yeah, fuck that. You should be running hard.
yeah,
Now, of course, if you become somebody who seems like, and you've met many of these, I'm sure, asshole, ass kicker, unethical, you know, give me an even shot with somebody, I'm going to crush myself to get past them. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to outwork them. I'm going to be able to keep my mouth, keep your eyes straight ahead, because there's so many people on the outside who are assholes, or you're inclined to say things like, I work harder than them, or they shouldn't get the promotion, but I should. Oh, they don't want me as much as I can. Fuck them. I'm going to go somewhere else. All that shit's going on. But don't lose the sense that you got somebody next to you and you got to beat their ass.
okay, yeah,
You just got to beat their ass.
yeah.
And some of it is just good old Catholic guilt. You know, it works for you and again you. But I
Yeah,
mean, that's always my attitude. Listen, I'm not going to cheat, but let me tell you what, if there's five guys taken out for the run, I'm going to try and get in the center lane and not let any of them in there.
yeah.
That's
Okay,
that. And
that's
so
okay.
my advice to you would be, shit, no.
Yeah, okay.
You take it, Pete. You
Yeah,
ever need that to get said again, you call me.
yeah. You got it.
I'll
Yeah,
be
yeah,
all over that.
yeah.
Because what else are you doing it for?
No, I agree. I agree, and I have that fire. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like is that too much? But I don't. And I appreciate you defining that. Like, there's clarity there. Like, it's not toxic. It's not like you're trying to politic in the back office. You're just out there trying to steamroll, doing the absolute
Although,
best you
although
can.
there is a little bit of, in business, there is a little bit kissing the right ass,
Yeah,
because in the political little game of business,
yeah,
you know the drill. Sometimes all of a sudden, Joe is talking to Harry and they thought Pete didn't have his fucking hair right the other day. And, his nose looked like shit. And, it's all politics. So
yeah,
sometimes you just got to get in there and clean that shit up.
yeah.
If they're taking a shit on you, you're not going to be as bad as them, but maybe you lob a little bomb back their way, just a tiny one,
Okay,
just to
yeah,
know that, I'm allowed to protect my turf,
yeah,
but you don't want to be the one who goes in there, right away. You can start taking shit on people like me when I was a boss. That ain't cool.
yeah,
That's not cool. Unless Susie told me you blow at your job.
yeah,
Then it's like the guy should or gal should be getting up in my face. And then my attitude was like, hoo, take it up with Susie. I'm not solving this bitch. You know,
100%.
I'm not in. But now let's go on with that. So now you got to keep your head together. And if you were to say now, what would be a practical next step? What is the kind of maybe like 3 year or 5 year plan, or are you not thinking about it that, or you may just
No,
thinking
I
chop wood?
certainly am. 3 years, 5 years. I either want to be, and this is something I love I love basketball, and I kind of call a good basketball game. I'm comfortable with that. So the opportunity to be like, Mark Zumoff was with the Sixers,
Yeah.
like a play-by-play guy for an NBA team, I would love. Or just to continue, football, basketball, baseball for ESPN, but continue to uh, get more of that.
Get into bigger conferences and
Yeah,
more.
well, yeah, and one of the reasons too is, and I've thought this, I've prayed on this, I think the more success I have at that level with ESPN nationally, because this year I did a bunch of games like on ESPN, on ESPN2, and people see you, and it enhances my ability to carry the message about sobriety. Because
Sure. I know you
like,
talk about it very openly.
oh, dude, I was in a halfway house working at Kentucky Fried Chicken 12 years ago, looking at the TV screen thinking, I'm going to get there. Like the moment I got sober and started to fuel myself with like recovery and the 12 steps, I really believed that stuff was attainable. And I want to share that with other people because it is, you
It
know?
is. It is.
Yeah.
Same for me. My attitude is once I got the oars in the water, rather than slapping my oars around the top and spinning the goddamn boat around, and knew that, oh, you just pull on it, both hands. Doesn't mean the boat's going to go real fast,
Yeah.
but you keep pulling, just keep pulling, and shit will go right.
Yeah.
Shit will
No.
go right.
And that's
You
that
know?
sometimes that's as basic as just showing up and moving in the right direction.
Yep, yep. Now back to that the issue of a professional. What about your personal life? Where do you put your, what's the shit that keeps you ticking aside from recovery?
Connecting with people. I like to I love being outside. I love being with, my family has been very important to me,
Mm-hmm.
because they have been with me along this journey. I mean, when I'm with my family, I feel like I'm very fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
unless I'm with my mom for too long. And she'd say the same thing about me.
Yeah,
So don't worry.
that's just growing
She'd
up.
say the same thing about me. But I mean that, I'm in a relationship now with a terrific woman, and I'm starting to, I believe, attract the sort of people that somebody with a healthy mind would attract, and I think she's a reflection of that, like in a romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, I like to, work is play for me, so
Mm-hmm.
that's really
What
good.
about any physical activity? Are you into doing
Running,
anything physical? Running.
I love to run. I love to be outside, get up into the trails. As I get older now, I'll walk and run, or sometimes I'll just go out there and just like really kind of hum it and run. And then, weight training here and there. The more and
Yeah.
more I get older, I know that's good for the body. So,
I just started seeing a dude every
yeah,
twice a week.
dude,
But it's
that's the
it's it's
best.
mostly bands.
Yeah.
And I had both hips replaced
Wow.
and a knee. And now after 2 years, uh, I'm a wild mountain bike rider.
Really?
I start cranking on my mountain bike riding again.
That's
It-
awesome.
oh, dude,
Yeah.
mountain bike riding is made for people who want to rush.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you come down a hill with some rocks in front of you,
Yeah.
and you bet now as I'm getting older, you better slow your ass down,
Yeah.
because gravity has a serious thing going on. And what it's hitting is the ground.
Yeah.
And, when I was younger, I didn't mind, going for air and eating it. Now, stay on the turf, Mark. You
Yeah.
don't need to be getting up in the
Stay
air.
on the turf. Yeah.
Yeah, keep your ass down. Don't jump. But I still fucking love it. And that was just to give another sense for time, Pete.
Yeah.
2 years of PT and having somebody get me working with my bands and my strength. And finally, I realized, wow, shit worked.
Yeah. We in the
I just stuck at it.
first day, it's like, man, this is going to be hard and long. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's rotate back to now. We got Pete Sousa, and he is getting fucked up. So why don't you walk us through, take us through the death walk.
Oh, I mean, I was in late October of 2011. I was in a situation where I was back at home living with my parents. I was doing any kind of drug I could get in my system, and
You ever get to heroin?
I snorted heroin. Yeah,
All right, okay.
and I loved it. I snorted heroin, and I called the drug dealer who gave it to me, and I said, "Hey, man, you better come back here with that."
Keep that shit coming.
Yeah, and so, but then I bottomed out in November of 2011, and
What would you be? Were there any massive either legal or whatever? What are some of the things that were massive? Kind of the bomb blew up along the way.
I mean, I racked up a handful of DUIs, and
Mm-hmm.
there were major consequences there, and stuff that I eventually had to sort through in sobriety. Some of the legality of all that stuff, but like anything. I mean, look, throw politics out the window. I mean, out the window. what we just saw with Hunter Biden, like, he was addicted when he bought that gun, right? But like, and it was really, it sucks that somebody with addiction has to deal with that. But ultimately, like, just like I did, like, there are consequences for stuff you do when you're drinking or using. Just because you're drinking or using doesn't make it okay or like not illegal. And so when I got sober, I had to do a lot of restitution to to as far as the law was concerned. And I didn't love it, but it was a part of my amends process and all that
what the
stuff.
fuck are you going to do? Not do it?
Yeah. So you got to do it. So that was something where I didn't love having to deal with all that stuff, but I did. And it was way more manageable than I thought it was going to be. Because when I'm drunk, I'm like, oh, I'll never be able to handle that, whatever.
Yeah.
You get sober and you start to do the next right thing.
Now, are you still, now you're flipping burgers?
Yeah, I was well, chicken.
Okay, frying chicken, whatever.
Yeah,
Come on.
I was frying chicken, but I this was when I got sober. Yeah, so I'm going through all the legal system after the death march, which was it ended on November 7th, 2011. When I came home and I told my parents, hey, I need to go to treatment, and they were like, fucking what about time?
Yeah.
And so we that's,
okay.
yeah. So then I had to do what I had to do,
Yeah. So now, but now somehow all that shit gets straightened up and you get yourself back into the broadcast, or you get into the broadcasting.
No,
business.
because I started to go to meetings. I started to get really into recovery, and that gave me the energy and the spirit and the drive that alcohol and drugs used to give me. So,
you picked yourself. In sobriety, when people are getting fucked up, they don't realize how much, what you can really do.
Yeah, well, how much
you clean that shit up,
or just like, I never thought that I was going to be able to have fun. I never thought that I was all these bullshit, all the lies.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I got to go in 5 minutes.
Okay, so let's get this done.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go, Pete. Might take 7.
Because I have a doctor's appointment. Good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to die, are you?
No, I therapy, so I might.
Now, that's a good one. We got to let you out for that. Okay, so let me ask you this. You went through all this shit in your life, right? And the kind of the bottom line is, you are where you are. Why? Why did you? Why?
Okay, that's a great question, and sometimes I ask myself that, like, why did I? Because I'm in the bonus round of life. I was a kid with a heart problem that that had a love for cocaine and Klonopin and alcohol. Like, all that stuff should have killed me. All the times I drove drunk, and people like possibly your buddy you went to high school with, it's like, why them and not me? And I stopped asking that question, and it legit is like, but for the grace of God, I am still here on this earth. And with the time that I have, I'm going to try to do the right things that will move me forward. And I started to believe in myself, because once I got sober, I really did think, okay, anything is possible. And it was because of recovery. It wasn't because of me. It was because I started to get vulnerable and telling people what I was worried about, just like I did with you moments ago. And when you open yourself up to that type of vulnerability, you get answers that you weren't even seeking.
No, you just shit comes.
Yeah. And so that is how I've been able to kind of still move forward and to still and find myself where I am today. Again, it was nothing. Joe Walsh, right? Like,
yeah.
I've heard him say, you have no idea at the time, but you look back at your life when you're, in your older years, and if you're sober, right, you look back and you say, wow, everything happened for like the way it was supposed to. But in the moment,
I always say being sober, one problem, and I'll let you go on this. One problem with being sober is I've been clean for 37 years. I remember all the shit I did wrong, and I know I was an asshole.
Yeah,
and the problem is, I can't say, "Oh, it's fucked up." No. You're just
remember.
You're just an asshole sometimes, Mark.
Yeah.
So I presume you are sometimes too.
Oh, that's more than a presumption. That's a problem.
All right. So Pete Sousa, I just want to thank you for coming on. You know,
Dude, I
a
had
Philly,
so
a
much
Philly
fun,
boy.
Mark. I had so
Good.
much fun. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. So with that, I'm going to just say goodbye. Be a good boy out there. Stay clean, work hard, and don't be an asshole.
And I'll be in touch.
Please do. Please do. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Adios. Thank you for listening to The Mark Halley Show. If you found this story as intriguing as we did, give us a like, share the episode, and subscribe at The Mark Howley Show. New episodes every other Friday. Adios.